Hi guys, welcome back to Maximus Games. If you haven't checked out our other videos, you should definitely do that. We'll put a link to our channel below. In the meantime, to give you a summary of what we've been doing, we are Maximus Games, a family-run indie game developing company. And right now we're working on our very first game release as a family, so we're really excited. It's called Time Walk Tower Defense. It's your classic tower defense game, but we've also added in a third-person fighting aspect, so you get right into the action for yourself. If you've been watching along, you know most of my responsibilities have been with the UI, specifically the directories. So today I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the logic behind that, which I think is really interesting whether you're a game developer or you know absolutely nothing about code. I think it's fascinating to be able to know what's going on behind the scenes. Now, the other thing I've been working on, my other main focus, has been the enemy design. And through some collaboration lately, we've come up with a whole new range of enemies for you to fight. And we've also been working some new designs, so it's got a little bit more pop and flair. I'm really excited to show you guys all this. Let's get into it. So let's start out with showing y'all some of what these designs used to look like. As you can see with our Timosaurs especially, they're just kind of bland. One or two main colors and that's it. So what we decided to do was add some purple to these guys. It makes them all look much more unique, as well as fit in better with the idea that these enemies have been pulled through time to wreak chaos. You see our Crocodile now has these awesome purple scales, which give him a lot more character. The Hungry Hungry Hippo's coloration change was basically to take any and all accent colors and make it purple, which I think gave him a very ferocious, mystical feel. For the Triceratops, you can see that the main changes were the purple clock numbers, as well as the accent on his hind legs, both of which were some of his cooler features, and now that purple really makes it pop. Now for the T-Rex, if you remember, he used to be a lot more vertical, which really just looked goofy. Now his body is parallel to the ground, and we also made his legs bigger because it was more proportional. You'll notice too we made most of his accents purple, but the big thing for him was that we did this long purple stripe on his underbelly, which I think looks really cool, and it also provides a very unique look for our big bad Timosaur boss. Now the Brontosaurus coloring got a little wacky. The way that voxel art works means that we have these distinct blocks to the design. It doesn't have a smooth finish. So I took advantage of that, and on each alternating layer, we have our time travel purple. Which altogether gives a really cool and different coloration pattern for this big boy. The Pterracopter probably had my favorite result for the purpling of these enemies. He already had a pretty distinct color theme, but to make him blend with the rest of his prehistoric friends, I still had to add some purple. So as you can see, I gave his wings some definition, this veiny arm-like coloring, and I think the result is fantastic. The other main group that had some major changes are the Time Lost. So today I'm going to walk you through the design and powers of these enemies. So the Time Lost Hound is covered in that same otherworldly purple, which you'll notice is now a staple in the closet for all the Time Lost. The Hound's abilities allow it to dodge attacks. Normally most of your towers are guaranteed to hit, but with this guy, that's not the case. Our next Time Lost enemy is the Scout. So playing with that namesake, I made him have eyes in the back of his head, because if he's a scout, he knows everything that's going on around him. So naturally, he can see with the back of his head. The next guy we have is the Time Lost Sorcerer. As you can see, the lower half of her body is disappearing into the void of time and space. Her mystical powers allow her to be completely immune to movement impairing effects. So barricades, slowing towers, all of those do nothing.
She can't do that. Shoot her or something.
Now the Swordsman had to have a pretty major change in its design look. He looks way too much like a pirate, and we really want all of our different enemy categories to be very distinct. So we ditched the V-neck and we changed up the sword to give it more of a time-lost mysticism feel. But I did keep the Fabio-esque hair because I just couldn't resist. Lastly on the list of original time-lost enemies is the time-lost Chieftain. So this guy is modeled after a Viking chief, as you could probably tell from the classic Viking shield and helmet horns. Now you can see too that his axe is made of that same blue time-lost metal. Now you're probably going, what the heck are these floating orb things? Well, the chief is powered by the souls of his ancestors, which have taken the form of these orbs. Now if you as the player go and attack these orbs, you can do exponentially more damage to the chieftain. Now we also decided to make some new enemies, one in each category, and the main reason for this was to be able to have some more variety in our levels, and be able to really play with these different enemy combinations. So what we focused on with these new enemies was finding a way to incorporate that third-person aspect. We already did this for our towers. The mage towers in particular all have this basic concept in mind. All three of them have powers focused on helping you, the player, be more effective and deadly. Moving forward with these new enemies, we were looking for ways to draw the player in and encourage them to make strategic decisions and figure out the best way to defeat these different enemies. The new time pirate we created is the deck swabber. He, as you might imagine, swabs the deck. Basically what this does is create zones where when you enter them, you're slowed. Now this is going to be really interesting, particularly when combined with a saboteur. So you're going to have to be avoiding the slow spots, but also this crazy guy throwing bombs at you, which I think is quite rude. Moving on, we also created a new time lost dude. So this enemy is a design in progress, but what you see here is actually my original design. It's kind of interesting. It was made using Unity's particle system. I tried this design because it really emphasized the bodily chaos of the time lost anomaly. But we had to ditch this design for a couple of reasons. The first is that the form is way too amorphous. While this was partially the idea, you still want to be able to make out the basic features of a body. But the biggest reason this design was ditched is because all of the different particle systems. They can majorly slow down the program and cause all sorts of problems. Thus, I had to go back to the drawing board. And while I don't have a final design on this one, I have now created a new possible rendering that is much more practical. Regardless of this, he has a really cool feature. So the basic idea behind this guy is that because of the effects of time destruction, his physical form is very fluid and not stable. As a result, he will occasionally duplicate himself.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
So obviously this guy could become a huge problem, because if you don't take care of him quickly, you could end up having to deal with 2, 4, 8, 16 of these anomalies instead of just one. Now the new Timosaur I created, if you couldn't guess, is the Velociraptor, or by its official name, the Velocitictosaur. As you can see for the design, I went very Hollywood Jurassic Park-esque. And really the reason for doing that instead of a more accurate model is just because this way is much easier to recognize in just the blink of an eye. Now the Velocitictosaur's power really gives the player an interesting decision to make. The Velociraptor will lunge at you, and if he hits, he latches onto you. Now this gives you a rush of adrenaline, aka a speed boost. But wherever you go, you're dragging the Timosaur with you. So do you use it as an opportunity to drag him back to the front, or take the risk and speed towards that enemy that's almost reached the time node?
What do we do?
Use the surge of fear and adrenaline to sharpen your decision making.
Now, we also created a new Time Dystopian Hit Squad guy, but you guys will have to stay tuned and keep watching to find out what it is. Alright, so like I said, I'm going to show you guys how I figured out this tower rotation. I knew I really wanted this feature so you guys could see all sides of each tower, especially the top-down view, which is what it'll look like while you're in the game. So this was probably the most challenging problem I faced when it comes to coding. None of it was very intuitive, but I figured it out and I'll show you guys how it works. Now, it's kind of interesting, but it's actually the camera that's rotating, not the tower. As you can see here in this scene view, the background rotates with the camera, which is what really sells this illusion. How it works is I have this empty object that I go in and manually center on each tower. Next, I move the camera so that it becomes a child of this object. And the important part of this is that the camera, no matter how the object moves, is going to stay at the same distance away. So when I rotate that empty object, the camera rotates with it and stays the same distance from the tower. After I figured that out, all that was left was making it rotate with the click and drag of a mouse, which is rather easy. And here we go with the finished look of that tower rotation. Now if you enjoyed this little mini lesson and learning how I figured this out, drop it in the comments below and we can start walking you guys through how we do what we do. Alright guys, that's all the content I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you're seeing in these videos and you enjoy watching what we're doing, please like, comment, subscribe, all of that to our YouTube channel. You can also turn the notifications on so you can see when we get a new video out. Of course, go check us out on everything else too. We have a website, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, we got it all. Go check us out and you're going to see some really fun things coming up. We also just got our Steam page up and going, which we're really excited about. So now you can go and wishlist Time Walk Tower Defense. Do it right now. I'm telling you, the game is looking great, it's feeling great. You're going to want to have this game. So go and wishlist that on our Steam page right now. The link will be below. Now, that's all I got for you guys. Wait for Alexander's video next week. And most importantly, game on.